Invercargill's looking a bit fucked. This city, which Mick Jagger once described as the arsehole of the world, is experiencing a deluge of challenges right now. Whole streets are almost completely shut down for renovations that some fear will never come, and the potential closure of two of its primary industries have left it looking like one of the bleakest places in the country to be a young person. We headed down to Invers to find out how bad things really are. What do you guys think of the state of Invercargill right now?
No comment.
No comment?
It's a bit messed up.
It's just a bit messed up. I've got nothing positive to say at the moment.
I used to, not anymore.
What did you used to think was great about Invercargill?
Well, I loved it. Everyone was, here to work, have a good time, and no one's here to work and have a good time anymore.
Do you think that that's reflective of how a lot of young people feel about the city right now?
Yeah.
Big majority.
What's the conversation at your school at the moment around wanting to stay in Invercargill?
Nearly all my friends aren't staying, so the majority of them are either going to Otago or Auckland, so I wasn't planning to stay.
Two of the city's economic pillars are shaking, with one of the area's biggest employers, the Tiwai smelter, possibly closing down, which would lose Invercargill 2,500 related jobs and $500 million in annual revenue, and the Southern Institute of Technology likely to lose most of its students under proposed changes to national polytechnics. In 2001, the Southern Institute of Technology made the bold move of introducing a zero-fees scheme, making them the only tuition-free tertiary education provider in Aotearoa. However, in 2019, the government announced they plan to amalgamate all of the country's polytechs into one national institute. This amalgamation will likely mean SIT will lose their zero-fees scheme, which will have huge consequences for the city. The zero-fees scheme at SIT has been a huge drawcard for Invercargill. And the year before zero fees was introduced, there were only 1,500 full-time students at SIT, and in recent years there's been almost 5,000. More importantly is how many of these students are coming from outside of Invercargill, with almost 40% of students coming from elsewhere in New Zealand or overseas. And this has become one of the main lines of Invercargill introducing new people and talent into the community, with 35 to 50% of graduates from here staying and working in Invercargill. What drew you guys down to study at SIT instead of going to a polytech like in Auckland or even around the Bay of Islands?
It was definitely the zero fees scheme. It's a lot cheaper.
If you guys have been looking for a polytech to study at and Invercargill and SIT didn't have zero fees scheme, would you have thought to come down here?
I guess not.
Probably
No.
not,
No, definitely not.
Alongside education to draw people to Invercargill, the city needs opportunities to keep them here. For the past 50 years, one of the region's biggest employers has been the Tiwai Point aluminium smelter, a massive facility south of Invercargill that is the country's only creator of aluminium. As one of the region's largest employers, the loss of Tiwai would be an incredible blow to the already struggling city. The smelter's owners, Rio Tinto, are currently reviewing whether to close the plant or downsize, mostly due to power infrastructure costs, which they say are unfair and are petitioning the government to reduce. You see, this smelter requires 13% of all power generated in New Zealand to run. So much power, in fact, that when the owners of the smelter proposed building it in the 1960s, they actually needed to build a whole new power station to do so, and proposed to build the Manapori power station in Fiordland. Over the following decades, the owners of the Tiwai smelter and the government have been in a constant tussle over obligations and pricing around power generated at Manapori. This current Fight for Fairness campaign says that it's unfair that Tiwai has had to spend $200 million in infrastructure costs to move some of this power up north. The government clearly sees a lot of worth in the smelter for the region, bailing it out with a $30 million grant in 2013, which then Prime Minister John Key said would be the last. But Tiwai don't see changes in transmission pricing as a bailout. They see it as fixing a flawed system, a system which is currently being evaluated by the Electricity Authority. But the Tiwai operators say the expected drop in costs from this review wouldn't be applied for 4 or 5 years, which would be too late. And so, under the weight of the current costs, the plant's owners Rio Tinto are currently reviewing whether to downsize or shut down Tiwai, leaving the 2,500 people whose employment relies on the plant worried for their futures. One of these workers is Glenn Fitzgerald, who's been at the Tiwai smelter for the past 8 years.
Putting up a new garage at the moment, so decided that I'd borrow some more money against the house. Went to see the bank and they lent me 50,000. A week after I confirmed that, Tiwai came out and said they were closing, but my property might not be worth as much. I think there's probably a lot of young families in that probably concerned that, sort of big mortgages probably couldn't handle paying their mortgage with a lower paying job and all that sort of thing. It hangs over people's head, but well, it's be best paying in Southland probably, so. Hopefully I could find a job that still fund my mortgage, but yeah. Good question.
The Invercargill Chamber of Commerce and Smelter are campaigning to have the government reduce their infrastructure obligations. I went along to one of their rallies.
A strategic review has never been called at Tiwai. It's a fairly serious process, it's something which Rio Tinto conducts rarely, and in this case it's looking at 3 options for the smelter. The first one is our ideal scenario, and that is full production but at a serious, significant reset in power price. And the second option is looking at curtailment. So at the moment we've got 4 potlines running at the smelter. It's looking at reducing that to 3 or 2 potline operation. That would also require a fairly significant reset in power price. And the third option which is being considered is closure. And so that's involved a series of meetings and people coming to site to understand what would that process look like, what would it cost, and how would we go about doing it.
So how long have you been at Tiwai?
Just over 5 years. I'm a chemical engineer who kind of looks after planning and production and improvement projects. Without Tiwai, there's not a whole lot of options for me in Southland. If there are no opportunities at 1 or 2 other workplaces, then we'd have to leave the region. It would mean that we'd have to sell our house and leave Southland and start again somewhere, and the kids would have to leave their lives, and Invercargill's a great place for a family.
Tim Shabot has been Mayor of Invercargill for much of the past 30 years. He's seen the city through some of its highest highs and now through one of its lowest lows.
It feels at the moment like we're a city under siege. There's so many issues that are coming up and coming at us. I just wonder what's going to be emerging next.
Yo, Tim.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. The sun's actually come out again.
Yes, the sun always shines in Invercargill. Well, I think we're better off than in the past because I arrived here in 1993 and we were the fastest declining city in New Zealand or Australia. Present conditions, economically especially, are bountiful compared with what they were in those days. If we hadn't been through it before, I think we'd probably be more nervous, but we've been through some tough times down here, and we've come through it in remarkably good shape.
You guys worried about the future of the city?
Yeah, I guess worried, but I don't want to be here much longer, so
Yeah.
my kids won't be growing up here in the way this is going now.